What is up, guys? I hope you have had a good week. So, wanted to do a video on inghams today because I think this needs to be done. So, I think it's fair to say that there's been a lot of concerning things seen in vlogs and stuff recently. We've seen that clip of Violet in Aurora, we've seen we've seen Isla holding a knife to Esme's neck. Like, it's, excuse me, what? And you got Sarah saying, oh, Isla's in her sight, however. Like, what the fuck? Like, why? I mean, at the end of the day, if that was my child and they'd held a knife or something like that to their sister's neck, I would probably report. Right, well, I won't report them, but I certainly did. They certainly get into a lot of trouble for that. It's just crazy you're seeing these sort of things on camera and the fact that people think this is perfectly normal behaviour. Those hits, there's something not right there. I think it goes to show that they shouldn't be watching stuff that they're probably not old enough to watch, because I think that is a big part of, the big influence in this is that they are basically watching a lot of things that they're probably not really old enough to watch, and might not be a good idea, because I mean, if recent things that are anything to go by, it's scary that you've got a child doing something like that. I mean, that's, to me, that's not normal in any particular way. I mean, you look at the vlog the other night, the thumbnail in particular was extremely disgusting. The fact that he'd exaggerated the injury on Isabel's arm. If you looked at the injury, if you looked at the video, the injury wasn't as bad as the thumbnail was making it out to be. Like, the thumbnail image was making the injury look way worse than it actually was. And when I look at that, I just don't understand why Chris felt the need to exaggerate that. I don't know why he felt the need to make that injury look worse than it actually was. And I know that he'll say, oh, it's just clever marketing, this, that, and the other, but is it really clever marketing, though? Exaggerating your child's injury and making that look worse than it actually is? Probably not. And I know a lot of people say, oh, there's nothing wrong with that thumbnail. I mean, to be honest, I feel like YouTube should do something about it. As I know a lot of people have reported the vlog for the thumbnail in particular. I myself have reported the vlog for the thumbnail, because I thought it was the right thing to do. I felt that the vlog should be reported, because of how bad and how disgusting the thumbnail itself actually was. There's nothing right about the fact that he was using a thumbnail image like that. It was just all like absolutely horrendous. And I think especially when you think about recent events, obviously some really horrible events actually happened. In Liverpool at the start of the week, it kind of feels a little bit disrespectful. I mean, if Preston had any decency, he would take that vlog down and he would change that thumbnail. But he won't have the decency to do that because he doesn't care. He knows that people don't think the thumbnail is appropriate. He knows that people have a problem with it, but he just doesn't really care. It's like obviously The problem is, we all know that thumbnail is extremely bad, and he probably shouldn't have used a thumbnail like that. But Chris would probably look at that thumbnail and go, well, there's nothing wrong with that thumbnail. I don't see why people are saying there's anything wrong with it. He would look at that thumbnail and think that it's perfectly okay. But we all know that the thumbnail itself was not okay or acceptable in any way. The other night, right there, one of their vlogs the other night, you had the kids, the two younger ones near the top of the stairs. And the parents weren't even, but no one was even paying any attention to them. It's like, when you look at that thumbnail they used the other day for the vlog on Thursday, that shows now but a pure level of desperation. It's basically rage baiting is what he was doing. He knows that when they use thumbnails like that, they're also going to get a lot of negative reactions to it, and a lot of people don't look at that and think, well, why the fuck seriously, why the fuck are you using a thumbnail like that? not if you had, I mean, of course, the iPhone would a thumbnail like that tried to justify that and say there's nothing wrong with it, but of course, a lot of people have looked at it and have obviously reported it, which they had every right to do. And I think that, if YouTube should do something about it, but unfortunately, they won't do anything about it because they don't really care. I've reported their vlogs a number of times for different reasons, and YouTube have never done anything about it. I've even, there's been times where I've reported the vlogs for showing blatant child endangerment, and nothing's been done about it. So they're basically wasting your time. If you just don't care. It's like it's just such a horrible thing. Like using a thumbnail like that, it's just ridiculous. I mean, obviously everyone's been talking about this thing with Ida holding the knife to Esme's neck, joking about things like that. Now that's scary. The fact that the child is doing something like that, and you've got Sarah joking around saying that he's in a sight area, like, dude, that's messed up. At the end of the day, I certainly never did anything like that to my sister. I've certainly never held a knife to my sister's neck. I don't know if I did something like that, one of my parents would skin me alive for that. They wouldn't be joking about it. They wouldn't be, they wouldn't see, they wouldn't think it was funny. They wouldn't think, they wouldn't think it was no, they wouldn't think it was normal. They wouldn't think it was normal if I was holding a knife to my sister's throat. They'd be looking at that and thinking, well, what the fuck are you doing? But you've got Sarah, the fact that Sarah's actually joking about it, and the fact that they think it's funny that Isla was holding a knife to her sister's throat, her sister's neck. I mean, I don't know how people look at that. I think that's normal behaviour, because to me, that's just not normal behaviour at all. I mean, I'm sure social services will have a field day if they saw a few of these, if they saw a few of these clips in the vlogs recently. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, that alone, like the whole, I mean, obviously not to mention in a Royal Rover the other day, it's like, seriously, what the heck is going on? It's like, why would they joke about Isla holding a knife to her sister's neck like that? You wouldn't joke about things like that. No normal parent would joke about something like that anyway. I honestly don't know what to say at this point. I genuinely don't. It's actually shocking, to be honest. Seeing things like that, it's there. It's quite disturbing, actually. And it's disturbing that people will still defend them over things like this as well. Because people shouldn't be defending them over things like this. People shouldn't be defending Chris over the fact that he used the thumbnail that he was using the other day, which was actually quite bad. When you look at it, there wasn't really anything particular. I mean, I'm not saying that the thumbnail was particularly inappropriate, but I still think that I just think that it wasn't really an acceptable thumbnail to be using. I mean, it's certainly not a thumbnail. What the hell is it? I mean, it's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable to be using a thumbnail image like that. It was so bad. As soon as I saw the thumbnail, I reported it. I mean, obviously, it's basically clickbait, and it's clickbait of the worst kind. It's just showing how purely desperate they are when they're using thumbnails that are that bad. And Chris knows that those kind of thumbnails are gonna get a reaction, which is why he uses thumbnails like that. I mean, good on anyone who's reported the thumbnail. Obviously, not that anything would be done about it if YouTube don't really particularly give a shit. But I mean, that is the major problem here. Is that there is no point in reporting anything to YouTube, because even if you report anything to YouTube, they don't particularly give a shit. That is the major issue here. I mean, I've reported a whole number of different things to YouTube, and nothing's been done. Yeah, I mean, Chris really, realistically, as I said, if he had any decency, he would take the vlog down and remove, not necessarily completely remove the vlog, but change the thumbnail. That would be the decent thing to do, and it would be the right thing to do, would be to take that vlog down and change that thumbnail. But he won't do that because he doesn't give a shit. He knows that people will think that the thumbnail was absolutely disgusting, and he knows that I'm sure he knew that people would probably report that thumbnail. Whichever, obviously, people had every right to do because of how bad the thumbnail actually was. But, that's what I'm going to say. Is he just doesn't need to be using thumbnails like that. Simple as that. And I think they need to be monitoring his behaviour. Like, fucking hell, holding a knife to your sister's throat. Like, Jesus. What's going on there with Isla? Like, bloody hell. I've seen some messed up things, but that, come on. I mean, that is bad. Yeah, but anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I want to give my thoughts on that. I'll see you for another video soon. Bye bye.